Hello everyone, and welcome to our complimentary webinar today. We are excited to have you with us, and thank you again for registering. We will have time for a Q&A session after the presentation, so be sure to submit your questions in the chat box provided. Now let me introduce our presenter today, Oscar Combs. Oscar Combs is a senior consultant of the ISO 9001 group. Oscar has over 22 years of experience providing consulting, auditing, and training to organizations such as Transocean, Hewlett-Packard, Kawasaki, Cameron, Halliburton, and numerous other medium and small-size organizations throughout the United States and abroad. Oscar is an exemplar certified lead auditor and a principal management consultant. Now everyone, let's welcome Oscar and begin our presentation today.
All right. Hello everyone. Thank you, Priscilla, for the wonderful intro. Today I want to talk to everyone about a very important topic. In fact, one of our hottest topics in regards to what people are searching for in the keyword, standard operating procedures. This is a very important topic that is very important for every organization. Before I get started in that, I want to just kind of give an overview of what we're going to be talking about. So standard operating procedures is critical to the success of your company. So your company that you're working in, SOPs is the foundation of its success. And writing and having effective SOPs, it provides a really good sound foundation for the organization's operations and for the employees working within those organizations. And for me, it's very important to understand that the SOPs are basically a way for us to capture our success and formulate a recipe that's strategic, repeatable, and flexible. All right, so in this webinar, that's my goal, is to kind of walk us through the process of coming up with standard operating procedures and learn how to clearly write standard operating procedures and things of that nature. All right, so what I would like to do today is just kind of give you some basic information. But before we get into that, I want to briefly introduce our company, the ISO 9001 group. Our company provides consulting, auditing, and training for organizations. We help organizations design and implement management systems, any management system we're able to support. We are management system experts. We're based in Houston, Texas, but although we're based in Houston, our client portfolio spans the United States and also internationally. Our focus is on helping our clients improve their operations and reduce their risk through their management systems, which is one reason why we feel that providing these complimentary webinars, is just consistent with our mission in helping our clients improve your operations. And so we hope through these webinars and other information that we send through our social media, through our email marketing, that it's helping you do that. Our consultants have an average of 25 years of experience. So, we understand the challenges that organizations go through. We have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Now, they don't give that away. We have to earn that, and so we're very proud of that rating. I would like to encourage you to like and follow the ISO 9001 group. You just search us on your favorite social media site, the ISO 9001 group, and you will be automatically registered to win a Amazon gift card. We do random monthly drawings for these gift cards, and people really love them. So I would encourage you to register as well by liking and following the ISO 9001 group. Now, we will have a Q&A session at the end of this webinar. But as I'm going through the material, I would encourage you to ask your questions using the chat feature. All right, so we will be monitoring your questions and compiling these questions, and I'll provide answers to those questions at the end of the webinar. So make sure you stay logged on. Don't log off in the middle of the webinar, because you're going to miss some really good information and critical answers to these questions, okay? All right, let's jump into it, because we only have a little time here, and I want to make sure we have enough time to answer questions. So, standard operating procedures. We need to think of these as a recipe for success for your organization. Just like any recipe, you want to make sure you have the right ingredients. So just say, for example, you guys make a perfect cheesecake, for example, and you determine all of the perfect ingredients, and that someone is willing to pay you top dollar for this cheesecake. Now, you want to be able to make that same cheesecake over and over again, right? And so that's what the SOPs are for the organization. They allow us to capture all the things that are going on well within the organization so that we can have strategic success. We don't want to have random success or lucky success. We want our outcomes of our organizations to be predictable and strategic. And that's what the recipe does for us. That's what the SOP does for us. It allows your organization to capture everything, document it, when it should be done, how it should be done, who should do it, how long they should do it, right? So that's what we're talking about. So I want you to think of your SOPs as the recipe for your success in your organizations. So, what's the purpose of SOPs? Well, one purpose is that an SOPs in the organization establishes the foundation for the business. I mean, just think about it. If you had a house and you had a very poor foundation, or you built the walls and you put a roof on, but you had a very poor foundation, when we have a storm, the house is going to crumble. And so that's the purpose of having the good SOPs, is that it gives your organization that strong foundation, for one, that you're able to build up on. And then you can expand. And then you can respond or prepare for all of the turbulent storms that come in business, the ups and downs of business. The SOPs provide the foundation. So you should look at establishing SOPs for all of your core processes and even your non-core processes, to make sure that these processes are strategic and that they are repeatable, all right? And that when we have a failure within the organization, that we're able to diagnose it to get to the root cause of it. Just think about it. If everybody's just kind of doing their own thing, we don't have any standard operating procedures, it's very difficult at that point to diagnose the problem. So that's why we have SOPs, gives us that foundation, make things streamlined so we can repeat success and we can also diagnose our problems. Second thing that it does for us is that it allows us to capture organizational knowledge. So what's organizational knowledge? It's all the knowledge within the organization. We capture organizational knowledge through SOPs, standard operating procedures. You know, many organizations operate based upon the knowledge of employees. I'm not saying that SOPs are more important than good employees, but what I am saying is that an organization's employees should operate based upon the knowledge of the organization as opposed to the organization operating based upon the knowledge of the employee. Because if the employee changes, they leave, new employee comes, capturing the organizational knowledge gives us that consistent foundation, and it allows for new people that come in that they can be properly trained. Or when people leave and we need to fill in gaps, people are able to go and look at the procedures and still figure out how to get things done. I think we all have seen situations where employees may go on vacation or maybe they're out sick or something of this nature. And everybody's looking around because they don't understand how that employee did this activity. And so therefore now the company can kind of is at a standstill and can't move forward because it has not captured its organizational knowledge. Organizational knowledge is one of the most important assets of the organization. Just like we do inventory on physical assets, your organization should capture its organizational knowledge and do inventory on its processes, document them in SOPs so that the organizational knowledge can also be captured. And you should think of organizational knowledge as the most important asset of the organization. Now, having SOPs allows an organization to be very nimble and flexible. Some people think that having SOPs will slow the company down. It will stifle, people from having, from being creative. Having SOPs has nothing to do with people being creative or stifling creativity. All right. So having SOPs gives us the foundation for creativity. SOPs are living documents. They should be revised. If we want to have a new strategic direction within the company, we have a foundation. I like Chick-fil-A. I don't know about you guys. I know we have some people on the line outside of the U.S., but most people in the U.S., they know Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is a wonderful, I say wonderful because I love Chick-fil-A. They have over 2,100 restaurants across 47 states. Now, what you'll notice about Chick-fil-A, and you guys can look them up on the internet, check them out, it takes them about 4 to 6 months to start up a new Chick-fil-A restaurant. This meaning, just having a plot of ground, they're breaking ground, getting permits, constructing the building and all of that. 4 to 6 months they're able to do that. That just shows you that, and Chick-fil-A is very big on process, very big on procedures. But I think it's a perfect example to show that an organization that has a really good foundation, has really good processes and procedures in place, how it's able to support the growth of the organization. Not having SOPs actually prevents a company from growing because they don't have that foundation to grow. So if you believe that SOPs are going to slow your company down, that's a myth, and it's a very bad misperception. So I want to encourage you to understand that SOPs are the birth of creativity, and it will not slow your organization down. So I want to cover 7 steps of writing effective SOPs. First, we got to identify the processes that we want to write SOPs for. And then we have to group these processes by topics. And then we need to develop intuitive titles for these processes, understanding that people are going to be searching and looking for them, and we need to index them properly. Then we need to develop a table of contents, and then assign document numbers. And then we need to map the steps of each individual process. And we're going to talk about how step 1 and step 6 are different. And then 7, this is where we're going to actually write the steps of the procedure. All right. So let's talk about the first step, identifying your processes. the first thing that you want to do is to sit down and maybe on a big dry erase board or a piece of paper or whatever, get together with a couple other people possibly and design what we call a process interaction map. Now, a process interaction map is nothing more than a process map of all of your processes in your organization. It is not a process map of all of the steps of individual processes. It is a map of all processes, and it allows you to understand the sequence and the interaction of your processes. So you can see here on this example, we're starting all the way from a process called request for quote, moving into preparing the quote, submitting the quote to the customer, all the way down. Now, this is just an example. Your process interaction map would go all the way down to packaging and shipping, all of that, customer satisfaction. Maybe submitting the invoice would be the last step, or the last step is probably collecting payment on the invoice, right? So you want to map out from start to finish. And as you can see here, let me kind of show a little highlight here, this little red dot. We can see that all of these processes, how they interact with each other. We can see how the request for quote provides input to the process prepare a quote, and how preparing the quote provides an input to submitting the quote. All right. So I want you guys to do that. That's your first step, designing a process interaction map. All right. So let's move on and talk about the next step. The next step is that we want to group these processes by topic. So as you can see in this process interaction map, these processes, request a quote, for quote, prepare the quote, submit the quote, and close out, is all related to the quoting process. And so as you develop your process interaction map, you may find that you're able to group processes that you've identified into topics. We can also, for example, we can probably group all of these engineering processes together as well, right? And we can have a process for engineering and design. But here's the big secret here. See, a lot of organizations will just try to write SOPs, and they'll just do it randomly. Maybe they'll start down here with writing an SOP for engineering and design. Maybe they'll write an SOP on receiving. And maybe they'll write SOPs when their organization is having problems. So meaning as a response to a problem, they say, oh, we need an SOP for this. Now, if we are very proactive, we're able to do a process interaction map, identify our processes, then write SOPs that will support our operation and prevent problems. And then we're not just writing random SOPs that are not linked together and that are not mapped together. As we can see, we have a nice clear structure in our process interaction map. All right, so now, like we talked about grouping our processes, we can take these individual processes and group them by topic. All right, so let's move on to our next step. Next thing we want to do is develop intuitive titles for our processes. You know, understanding that people will be looking for your processes, looking for your procedures. All right, so here, as you can see, I've taken that process interaction map and I've identified some topics for these processes after I've grouped processes where I've come up with 5 titles. One being managing customer quotes. So I've taken this group here and the topic of quoting, and I've come up with a formal name for this process, which this one process comprises these 4 individual processes. The next one, engineering and design. As you can see here, I've put numbers that correlates with these titles. 3, job planning. So the process has planning, and I refined the title to be job planning. And then preparing work orders. It's coming from right here, this step. And then number 5, purchasing and receiving. So just think about it. If you guys have designed your process interaction map for all of the processes that you have, come up with these good titles, then you start to see some structure coming into play here, right? And you start to see some good titles for your processes develop. All right, so let's move on to the next step. Our next step is that we want to develop a good table of contents. Now, we did a process interaction map, and it gave us the ability to understand how all of our processes interact with each other. And we finalized some titles. But now when we put it in a table of contents, we are drilling down and we're getting more structured. We started all the way, if you remember, with a blank slate. And then we developed the process interaction map, came up with some titles, and now you can really start to see a very specific and structured table of contents coming up. And it's not just random topics or random procedures that were written due to some type of failure or as a reaction to something. This is something where we proactively built our foundation, and we've identified our processes and the procedures that we need to execute them. All right. So let's go to step number 5. After we come up with our table of contents, now we want to give our procedures document numbers. Now, if you notice, I switched from the word process, and I'm using the term procedure now, because the process is the process interaction map that we talked about, the individual processes. Now, the steps of those processes are what we refer to as the procedure for the process. So the steps is what the procedure is all about. So if someone is looking for the steps on managing customer quotes, we want them to understand that's probably a sales process. That's why we want to come up with simple and intuitive numbering structures. And believe me, I've seen a lot of different numbering structures. I've seen numbers that are like 13 characters long with dashes and this suffix, this prefix, and this abbreviation, and it's so confusing. It probably makes sense to the person who actually made it up, but believe me, I know it causes a lot of chaos for the employees trying to find these documents and understand what these numbers mean. That's why we want to focus on simple and intuitive numbering structures. Now, this numbering structure that we have developed here is very robust. This numbering structure will accommodate the biggest of organizations and also accommodate the smallest of organizations, but it's so simple that it's so robust. So let's say, for example, for sales, very simple, prefix, SAL, 3-digit number. For purchasing, PUR, 3-digit number. Anyone looking at this document, PUR, they can automatically, intuitively, keyword, intuitively, relate the document to purchasing. Engineering, ENG, intuitively, if I saw this document on someone's desk, I would say, oh, E&G, that's an engineering document. Production, PRD, production document. So I would encourage you guys, if your numbering structures are like very complicated, they can be this simple right here and really provide you with a lot of benefit. You may be wondering why people don't use your procedures. Well, this could be one reason. For one, they can't find them. Secondly, they're confusing, possibly. That's why we want to focus on simple, intuitive, because it's all about your target, the employees that you're trying to reach with the procedures. It's really not about the writer, the person writing the procedure. And then, people are going to be looking for these documents. Say, hopefully they're going to be looking for them, right? That's why we put them together. Hopefully someone's going to be looking for maybe someone in sales, do we have a procedure on managing customer quotes? Someone in engineering, do we have an engineering procedure? Someone in production, how do we have a procedure on planning a job, preparing work orders, purchasing and receiving, so forth. So you can see here, very simple and intuitive numbers and titles, very clean structure for your system. All right, let's go to number 6. Now, this is where, now that we understand the sequence of our processes and the interaction of them from the process interaction map at the high level, now we want to drill down and identify or map out the individual steps of each process. So, for example, we are taking the SAL001 procedure and mapping out the steps. So here we say we want to receive the RFQ. We want to review the requirements. And then we have a decision. Do we want to bid or no bid? If it's no, we're going to close it out. If it's yes, prepare a quote. Of course, the procedure here would be, quite longer than it is here. This is an example. But you can see how it provides the sequence of steps in this individual procedure. All right. Now, let's move on to our next step of writing the steps of the procedure. In some cases, having that flow chart that we just looked at will be perfect. But, it lacks the detail. It does not answer the question why we need to do this step. For example, let's go back to that slide. If we just look at the step, review requirements, it does not explain why they need to be reviewed, right? So that's the importance of writing the steps, but at least we understand the flow of the steps, the sequence, how those steps interact with each other. And now basically you can see, because of that flow chart, we're able to come up with a nice outline of the steps of our procedure now. Managing customer quotes procedure. And we're able to identify and explain the why for each step and also give people guidelines of doing these steps, right? So that's why we would want to, if you only have flow charts, those are great. But to take it to the next level, we want to put that in context for people, and so that they can understand why they are doing certain steps and give them guidelines of when they want to execute those steps. All right, so hopefully that helps. So that's the 7 steps of writing SOPs. At this time, because we're kind of right at our target time here at 3 o'clock, I would like to see if we have any questions that I can answer. Priscilla?
Thank you, Oscar. We do have a few questions. So the first question today is, does your company offer any training on writing SOPs?
Yes, we do offer training for SOPs. We offer training here at our office. We can also come to your location. We also offer a lot of tips, just like this complimentary webinar. So if you would like some training to talk about training further, I would encourage you to reach out to us on our website, contact us here at the number on the screen or the email address, and we can help you out there.
Okay, Oscar, what do you suggest we do next if we don't have any SOPs in place?
If you don't have any SOPs in place, I want you to start with that first step of doing that process interaction map. Just actually what I want you to do is to follow these 7 steps. And after you complete those 7 steps, you will have a nice portfolio of procedures, and you would have captured your organization's knowledge and provided the necessary foundation for operations.
Okay, Oscar. Another question would be, how do we get coworkers willing to share the details of their jobs so that we can capture SOPs?
Well, sometimes when it comes to dealing with your coworkers, they may not want to share all of the detail of how they do certain things, because at the end of the day, let's just be honest, it's related to job security. But you need to be able to explain to them that it's not about taking your job or having someone else do your job. It's about packaging the recipe for success for the organization and also for your position as well. So we can explain it and get their buy-in by addressing their ultimate fear, which is the issue of job security. Okay.
Okay, Oscar, another question is, how would you suggest to move forward when you have a mix of SOPs and a system, but it's outdated and not intuitive?
Yeah, I would go back to these 7 steps again, do your process interaction map, and then fill in the gaps. So maybe you already have some of these procedures or processes documented. Then you can map it out and fill in the gaps of what you already have versus what you mapped out. And maybe you'll find that some of the procedures that you have are outdated at that point. You should take the opportunity to revise them and make them current. Remember the Chick-fil-A example that I talked about, how the procedures are living documents. And so when things change in the organization, the first thing that an organization should do before they even roll out change is to revise the procedure and understand how that change is impacting the overall process interaction map that we talked about. And then you roll out the change. So if you have documents that are old, that means that the change was implemented before the procedure was actually revised. Any other questions?
Yes, sir. One more. We need help writing SOPs within our organization. Can the ISO 9001 group help us?
Yes, we definitely, if you need assistance with this, coming up with your SOPs or helping write your SOPs, we can definitely come on site, talk to you about what your needs are. You can contact us via our website, at the phone number, at the email address. We would be more than happy to talk to you about that and explain how we can help your company develop really good, sound, standard operating procedures. All right, so I understand that is all of our questions for today. I would like to encourage you to contact us. You can reach us here at this email address, this number. Also, please like and follow us on social media as well. Well, I really enjoyed our time today and explaining, giving you hopefully some really valuable information that can help you go back into your organizations and write effective standard operating procedures. Thank you.